Hello, 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 everyone. I'm Aleta Norris. I am here to talk with you about foolproof conversations. Now, the good news is that what we're talking about today has application to every aspect of your life. And what I would like to ask you all to do, for those of you who have your cameras on, by show of hands, who is a formal leader of people? You lead a team, you're their boss. Let me see, keep them up. Let me see. All right. Okay. Now, who is not a formal leader of people? However, you are on a daily basis needing to influence other people to do work so that you can do your work. Put your hand up. Okay. Now, I imagine that should be everybody. All right. Now, how many of you are parents of humans that you are still raising in the world? Okay. Now, one of my favorite things about what we're talking about today is having foolproof conversations applies to any of those scenarios. And quite frankly, any interaction that you have in the world. Let's set the stage by having each of you share one, well, first, not even share. I want you to think about one situation that exists in your life between you and another person where there's an issue that probably should be discussed. Okay. Now, it can be an employee who is not meeting an expectation. It could be a coworker who is either behaving in a way that is difficult for you or something related to their performance that is affecting you. And by the way, if you received the worksheet that was sent to you this morning by, I think Lisa at Milwaukee, you might want to be looking at that. The first question is name one or two uncomfortable. Oh, Rita sent it. Thank you, Rita. So one or two uncomfortable situations that come to mind for you. It can also be, for example, tension that exists between you and your sister. Or it could be a frustration or challenge that exists between you and one of your kids. Now, here's what will help me is if you fire up your chat box and drop an example in the chat box. So you might label it leader. If you're a formal leader and it's an employee, you might put leadership or employee and then briefly state the challenge, the difficult situation. I have someone who's not completing their work. I have someone who's missing deadlines. I have someone who's missing work. I have someone who's rude to their coworkers. Okay. Or you could put parent, or you could put sibling. I want to see the context. What I'm going to do is grab a couple of examples as we walk through this foolproof formula. Now, when you drop these in the chat box, we're the only ones who will be able to see it in this room. All right. And then once this room ends, those comments are not available to everyone else who's at this event. So, will some of you go ahead and type in the chat box a challenging or uncomfortable situation that needs your attention by way of a conversation? Okay. And so far, I don't see anything. Has anybody typed something and it's simply not showing up? If you've typed something, will you put your hand up? Okay. All right. And if nobody wants to put something in the chat box, I've got a whole long list of issues. Okay. So while you're thinking about that, I'm going to go ahead and continue. Oh, good. Dave, thank you. So Dave has an employee not meeting performance metrics. Oh my goodness, gossiping. I love that one. Employee and leadership Gossiping. I'm going to grab that one. We are going to use that one. A leader, a leader who is gossiping about other people. Who shared that one? Carrie did. Carrie, like, we have to shut that down. Someone in leadership who's negatively complaining and causing disruption. Okay, this is a good one too. All right, negatively complaining. An old employee stuck in their own ways. Okay, so this is good. This sets us up for the work that we need to do today. I'm going to grab performance metrics, gossiping about other employees, and negatively complaining, because these are common human behaviors. All right. So now what I'm going to do is share my screen so that I can give you a bit of a foundation for our conversation today. So what we're going to do is set the stage here. So we've thought about an uncomfortable situation. What we're going to talk about are some things for you to consider as you approach an uncomfortable situation. A 6-step process to guide your conversation, and then some words that you might want to be weaving into your conversation. This graphic that I'm showing you right now, which is on your worksheet, is one of my favorite concepts when you are ready to have a conversation with someone about something that is difficult. So imagine that in this conversation, there are 3 players involved. There is you, there is the person you're talking to, and there is the problem to be solved. So I'm going to grab this one about a leader in your organization who is gossiping about other employees. Okay, so this is the problem. The problem is they're gossiping. I want you to imagine going into this conversation that you're going to take that little circle that says you, and you're going to slide it over next to the, you're going to slide it over next to the other person so that the two of you are standing shoulder to shoulder. And essentially what this means is that you are going to team up with the other person against this problem that you need to talk about. Now, in this case, the problem is the gossiping. Here's the thing. When you team up with the other person, what that means is, listen, I'm on your side. You're doing something right now that I view as a problem. It may be something I feel frustrated about, but I'm on your side. I'm on your team. Now, when you are symbolically on someone's team, what that means is that you are going to be curious. You are going to listen to them. You are going to support their side of the story. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with them. It means you're going to support that they have a side of the story. So in the case of someone gossiping about another employee, you're going to, first of all, be interested in hearing from them what's leading them to gossip about other employees. And you're going to be open to hearing what they have to say. If you instead were to take that circle titled you and slide it over next to the problem and team up with the problem against the other person, you would very likely come across as more intolerant, more unwilling to listen to what's going on in their mind that's leading them to gossip. In fact, if you team up with the problem, you might say something like, I don't know what your problem is. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it, and it needs to stop. If you're teamed up with the other person, you may say, I have a concern about something I've heard, and in fact, something that I've experienced myself. And that is a tendency that you have to talk about other people when they're not present. Can you tell me what leads you to do that? And then you listen. They might say to you, well, all these people are so frustrating. If you're teamed up with them, you will say something like, tell me what you mean, or tell me more. So in fact, the question, tell me more, which, well, that's a statement. It really is a question posed as a statement. I would encourage you all to have that question on a very short list of golden nuggets. So anytime you are talking with someone and there's a frustration involved, you can simply say, tell me more. A simple formula that you can use, fact plus question equals A. What this means is I'm going to share a fact with you. I'm going to ask you a question, and then ultimately we will arrive at an agreement. The fact is, you have a tendency to talk about other people behind their back. The question is, what can you tell me about this? The point about the fact is you have to know how to state your facts. That is, you describe what you see or hear. You state only the facts, you don't make assumptions, and you don't judge or criticize. So when I say to this person, I notice you have a tendency to talk about other people behind their back, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say this is terrible of you. I can't believe you're doing this. You're so immature. We're not saying that. We're only going to say what we see. Or the example about someone who negatively complains about the organization. And everyone who's here, you want to shut that down. That is not okay. That is immature. It is unprofessional. And, ultimately, one of the questions I would ask is, if this place is as bad as you say it is, I'm curious to know something. What prompts you to stay here? I mean, ultimately, that's the question to ask. If they say, well, there are things I like about it, I would say, well, tell me what those things are. And then ultimately, especially for those of you who are leaders of people, you need to be crystal clear with the complainers that it is not okay. So the agreement, if we go back to fact plus question, I've noticed and I've received feedback from people that on a regular basis, you complain about the things you don't like about being here. Question, what can you tell me about that? Now, ultimately, after you've had some conversation, the agreement that you need to arrive at with that employee is moving forward. If you have something you're concerned about, you will come to me. Otherwise, you will no longer complain to other people about what you don't like about this organization. Okay. Side note, because you are adversely affecting the quality of their experience in this organization by having to listen to you. Okay. So fact plus question is another golden nugget. All right. Several years ago, in fact, this is over 15 years ago, when my oldest daughter was 16 years old, she came home late. She missed her curfew. She wasn't answering my calls to her phone. She wasn't responding to text messages. When she got home, I said to her, "You're late. And you go to bed. We'll talk about this in the morning." And she said to me, she said, "Mom, you didn't ask me what happened." I said to her, "Don't use my stuff on me." No, I didn't. She knows the formula, fact plus question. You're late. Question, what happened? Right? And then the agreement ultimately that we reached is next time when something happens that leads you off schedule, you will reach out to me. And if you lose your phone like you did on this night, you will borrow a phone. Okay. Fact plus question is one of the short list golden nuggets that will be very foundational for your success in communicating with others. Now, that's the really short formula, fact plus question. Okay. And I want you to remember that. In fact, say that out loud to yourself. Fact plus question. Fact plus question. You were late. What happened? You have a pattern of complaining. What can you tell me about this? You've been talking about other people behind their back. What is leading you to do this? You are not meeting the performance metrics that have been established for your role. What is preventing you from doing that? Okay. That's your short formula gold nugget. Now, we have a 6-step process for what we might say, perhaps a more robust conversation. And what we'll do is zip through each of these very quickly so you can grasp the picture. And then, of course, you have a worksheet, I think it's on page 3, where you can jot down notes for what you might share with someone that you're talking through a situation with. So our first step, if we've requested to have a conversation, is to thank them for sitting down to have a conversation. So I know one of the situations was you're not meeting performance metrics. Okay. So first of all, I have to schedule the meeting. I'd like to schedule some time to talk with you about a concern I have. Okay. You sit down in the meeting. Step 1, first of all, I want to thank you for taking this time to talk with me about this concern that I'm about to share with you. I appreciate it. I know you've got a lot on your plate. Step 2, you state your concern, you outline the discussion, and you get their reaction. So at this point, I'm simply setting the stage. And I might say something like, the reason I wanted to talk with you is I have a concern. I'd like to share with you what it is, and then give you an opportunity to respond. The reason this set the stage is important is I want them to know that they are going to have an opportunity to respond. I also want them to know that I have a concern, and that's language that we have chosen very intentionally. I have a concern about something, whether it's gossip, complaining, not meeting metrics, coming to work late, a teenager who's not fulfilling responsibilities as a member of your family. All right. You can thank every person. And even if you are the person with the position power as a parent, as a leader, you still can thank people because it is a show of respect. Now, the next thing you do is you share your factual observation. And then you may also state your expectations. So as an example, this is one that we use kind of standard. I've noticed that you've started work late 4 times in the last 2 weeks, each by 10 or 15 minutes. The expectation is that you're logged onto your computer and ready to begin work no later than 7:30 a.m. Okay. Now, at this point, you're not going to say more, even though you could. You could say, well, and this is impacting the team, and our customers are not being served because you're not available to start answering calls. You're not going to go on and on and on. You're simply going to say, here's what I see. Here's what I expect. Now, if you're an informal leader and you're talking to a team member who you don't have authority over, you would simply leave that last piece off. You would leave the expectation is that you'd leave that off because you're not the boss of them. Instead, what you would do is you would say, hey, like I've noticed that you've started work late 4 times in the last 2 weeks. And I get it. It's only by 10 or 15 minutes, but it affects us. And that's all you're going to say until you ask your question, which is going to be our next step. Here's one more example. During the past month, you've missed 4 important deadlines, all that affected my ability to meet my deadlines. The expectation that we established on our team is that we'll honor our deadlines. That's as far as you're going to go in terms of stating the fact, because next, what we're going to do is ask a key question and turn it over to them so they can respond. And so it's kind of like thinking that the person who's talking is the one who's holding the ball. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to give the ball to them and you're going to say, hey, Can you tell me what's going on? You're only going to ask one question. So what can you tell me about this? What's going on? What happened? You pick your question. I want you to make note of this. Ask one question and then stop talking. The reason this is really important is because too many of us, we ask a question, and because there is silence, we ask another question. And then there's silence, we ask another question. So it might sound like, after I say you've missed 4 key deadlines that have impacted my ability to do the work. So like, what's going on? Why aren't you meeting these deadlines? What is there something I don't understand? No, 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 no. One question. Now, when you ask your one question, then what needs to happen is you go into step 5, which is now ask and listen. And what you're doing in step 5 is you're peeling an onion, removing one layer at a time by asking one question at a time. So if I say you've missed deadlines, what's going on? What I need to do is I need to be quiet, because while I'm waiting silently, the other person is actively thinking, and they are inside their head trying to determine what they are going to say to you. They're thinking about, okay, how am I going to formulate my response? What is my situation? What is preventing me from hitting my deadlines? It could be a lot of things. And it's also very likely that what they're going to share with you is valid. It could be, oh my God, I have so much on my plate. I'm so overwhelmed. I feel like I'm not doing anything right. At which point you could say, well, could you tell me more about that? Or could you help me understand? And then share some empathy along the way, and jot that down. Share empathy. You might say something like, I had no idea. I didn't realize that you were juggling so many balls. Or I didn't realize that you weren't getting what you needed. And you could say something like, this is helpful for me to know. And that's another phrase that I encourage you to write down. Remember to say that. This is helpful. If someone's frustrating you, it's possible they have something to share with you that would be helpful for you to know. And they need to know that since you are on their side, you are on their team, that you are willing to listen to what they have to say. So this whole step 5, we label it the conversation box, because you are inside a box with this person. You are in a conversation with them. You are surrounded by people who are struggling to keep it together. They're juggling things at home. They're juggling things at work. They've got way too much on their plates. Perhaps they have family members who have an illness. They're homeschooling children. There's a lot going on. And even though they are frustrating you, and even though they are dropping the ball, when you are in the conversation box with them, it is about them. And certainly you can slip in the impact. This is helpful for me to know, and I want to make sure you understand that this is creating some hardship, or because of this, we're not meeting the needs of customers, or because of this, team members are feeling really stressed. Because ultimately, we're going to go to step 6, which is gain agreement. So whether we reached an agreement in the conversation box or not doesn't matter, because step 6 is where we gain our agreement. Now, what you want to do in step 6 is, first of all, thank them for sharing the conversation. And so you may say to them, first of all, I want to thank you for talking with me about this. I want to thank you for sharing some things with me that I didn't realize. I want to acknowledge to you that I didn't know some of the challenges that you were up against. So what I'd like to do now is agree on what's going to happen moving forward. And then we'll find out if there's anything that you need from me. So I might say to the complaining person, I might say, thank you for helping me understand some of the things that are difficult for you, some of the things about this organization that are frustrating. And I want to say to you that some of your concerns are valid. In fact, some of them I agree with. Now you pause, you don't use the word but, you pause. What I would like to do for us moving forward is establish what the expectation is. And the expectation is that moving forward, if you have a concern, you will bring them to me and we will talk about them privately. You will no longer bend the ears of your coworkers and colleagues with all of the things that you don't like about this place, right? Do I have your agreement that moving forward, that will no longer happen? Okay. Now, relative to performance, thank you for having this conversation. I've learned some things I didn't know, and I understand some of what you're up against to meet the expectations. You know, the other thing is it could be completely self-imposed. It could be, this conversation has shed some light about how some of your time management is getting in your way, or your inattention to detail is preventing you from turning in good work. I do want to be clear, however, that your proofreading of your work that's a non-negotiable. I expect for your work to be accurate. Or from a time management perspective, I understand that you're up against some challenges that make time management difficult. I would like to help you with that because meeting these deadlines, this is a non-negotiable situation. Okay. So what we're really doing is we are affirming their challenge and then redirecting them to our expectation. And please write down on your notes, do not use the word but, B-U-T, do not use the word but. So we do not say, this was really helpful, but the expectation is this. No, this was really helpful. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the expectation moving forward. All right, now I am going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to come back to all of you. And what I encourage you to do, and we don't have enough time to wrap this all up for today, but what I encourage you to do while this is fresh in your mind is to jot down a couple of notes for a conversation that you would like to have with someone. And of course, your page where you can jot notes is side by side with the model that you can be looking at. And I would lean into this. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in the chat box, I'm going to drop my email address. And if you would like to, so aletanorris.com, Norris at livingasaleader.com. If you would like to have a conversation and you need some help having a conversation, then I encourage you to reach out to me if you need some help. So one more thing I would like to share with you is if any of you are intrigued by this kind of morsel of information that we kind of took a look at today, I would like to encourage you to consider the leadership development series that we host in collaboration with RCEDC and RAMAC. And what I'll do right now in the chat box is drop a link. Let me just grab that link. I'm going to drop a link to a page that gives you more information. So this will be, I think, our 7th year running this series in collaboration with RCEDC, and we're grateful for that partnership. Now, we have 1.5 minutes. Will you type in the chat box one thing that was helpful for you today, one nugget, one thing that you liked that was helpful for you today? And you've got about 1 minute to get that in there. And let's see how many we can grab before our time ends. Okay, this is our, we just got our 1 minute warning from Jeremy. Oh, good. And Anna, thank you. So Anna said to call her at Raymac. Okay, don't say but, avoid using but, the F plus question model, not using the word but. Oh, I'm glad that you all like that. Asking a key question, but then waiting for a response as opposed to asking an additional question. Don't say but. I love this. If you can remove that from your language, it really makes a difference. Team up with the person, not the problem. Share empathy. Standing next to the person, not the problem. Yes. Observation based on factual behavior. Absolutely. These are really good, you guys. Now, also, I'm not sure. I'm going to resend that link because I might have sent it only to Travis. Ask one question, then be silent. Okay, we're going to go. We're being zapped in, we're being zapped in 58 seconds. So we have just a moment yet. Okay. Does anybody have a question in our last probably 45 seconds that you would like to ask me while we're all together? Anybody want to ask a question? Oh, Jeremy, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's my birthday today. Yay. Okay. Any question? Lightning round question.
Is
All
it
right.
living as a leader or living as leader? I noticed your email didn't have as a.
Oh, it's living as a leader. Yeah,
As
thank
a
you.
leader.
So
Okay.
at livingasaleader.com, there it is.
All
Thank
right.
you, Casey, for clarifying that. Yes,
No
I'm
problem.
happy to help any of you